Manishitanubbhavoyam mama lokavalokanam yad upashrutya rahasi chakarta paramam tapaha. Manishitanubbhavo yam mama loka valokanam yadupashrutya rahasi chakarta paramam tapaha. The highest. You do the translation. I don't have to read it in English. Mukam karot. So this verse is very interesting. Manishitanubbhavo yam mama lokavalokanam. So what this is saying is that one can see Krishna and Krishna's abode directly if one has the proper consciousness. Krishna and Krishna's abode should actually be the most obvious sight. Why? Because Krishna and Krishna's abode are reality. So why we are not seeing that reality? That is because our consciousness is somewhere else. Our consciousness is an illusion. Thus, although we have eyes, and although Krishna, his abode are all around us, we cannot see. Someone might say, well, but the eyes are material, that's why we cannot see. But the Brahma Samhita, in that famous verse, Premanjana Chorita Bhakti Velochanina, this famous verse says that no, one can see the inconceivable form of Shyam Sundar with these eyes. But pure devotion, the mood of pure devotion, must be manifest within the consciousness. You see this, just as we see in the material world also, according to consciousness, something is seen in different ways. Janaka Pandit has given a very illustrative example of this point. That to many people, the form of a beautiful woman is something that is nice, is enjoyable to see. But actually, that depends on the consciousness. If a person is lusty, if there's lust in the consciousness, then when he sees that form, he thinks, oh, this is very nice, this is very pleasing to my eyes. But Chanakya Pandit points out that a self-controlled sage, he will see the same form as a dead body. It's just a corpse, bones and flesh and skin wrapped around it. That's all that's there in the vision of a self-controlled sage. And Chanakya Pandit also says, for a dog, that same form, is food. Of course, dogs won't try to eat it as long as it is still moving. They will wait till it doesn't move. But it is food for them. These people who keep dogs and think dogs are my friends, they don't realize that this is how dogs look at the world. They just look at the world in terms of food. And when they come and they lick your hand, they're tasting. As long as the owner of the dog feeds the dog something else, then the dog won't bite that hand. But if the dog doesn't eat, then he will Think about eating that hand. Because for him it is also food. That's all it is. So, anyway, this example illustrates how it is consciousness that determines how we see and what we see. So, this verse is saying that in order to see Krishna and Krishna's eternal transcendental abode, one must give up the material conception. Yadupashrutarahasi chakarta paramam tapaha. Lord Brahma gave up the material conception by doing two things. He was very, very submissive. Submissive disciple, eager to hear the glories of the Lord. And eager to render service to the lotus feet of the Lord. And the second quality, paramam tapaha, that he performed great penance. Paramam means the highest. He performed the highest austerity for the sake of the Lord. So, sometimes we become a little serious due to what is called shmashana virakti. That means shmashana means the burning ground, where they burn. In India, they burn the corpses. In the West, they put the dead bodies in the ground. So, graveyard. What is in the West a graveyard is in India a burning shmashana. So when people go to the burning ground, a graveyard, to dispose of a dead relative, then they become a little serious about life. So virakti, this word means disgust. It's related to the word vairagya, which means renunciation. So in another statement, Chanaka Pandit has pointed out how people, when they lose a relative, they have to bury or burn the body of the relative, then they become very sober. Virakti, very sober. And that mood of vairagya, renunciation, becomes prominent. They start to think about how this life is temporary. and how meaningless this material existence is. And also, one may experience the same virakti when, for instance, when he becomes sick. And certainly when we ourselves are on the verge of death, then we will start to think very seriously. Chanakya Pandit points out, if one could somehow maintain that conception that one experiences when he's laying a near and dear one to rest, or when he's very sick, or when he himself is facing death, then that person, he would be his whole life dhira. Dhira means he would be very sober, self-controlled. He would not commit any sins. He would not offend other persons. He would be a perfect human being. But this shmashana virakti, as we see, it does not last. In Western funeral ceremonies, sometimes it does not last for more than a few minutes. Because after putting the body in the ground, saying some prayers, immediately they're opening the bottles and pouring drinks all around. Some people are attending the funerals. I have seen this myself, because once I used to work in such a graveyard. And I remember how in these funerals, people were coming only for the drink. So, why is this shmashana virakti temporary? Why even after we get very sick, we're very sick, laying on the bed with high fever, and we're praying to God, please help me, that I will become such a good devotee. But then when we feel better, let me enjoy again. Why is this? And that is because we lack this sense of submission. We lack the sense of being a submissive servant of the Lord. And We are not austere. We do not have penance. And thus, we can never rise above the material vision, material conception. Sometimes the material world is looking very attractive to us. Sometimes it disgusts us. But that's all, in either case, that's all we're seeing, is the material world. We're never seeing beyond to the transcendental realm. So, one has to become what Srimad Bhagavatam calls nirapeksha. Nirapeksha. The word aksha means eyes. So, nirapa aksha, nirapeksha. So, that means one with these eyes, one sees nothing else except Krishna. At all times, as we were saying yesterday, all times, all places, all circumstances. The eyes are such, the eyes are nirapeksha. They cannot see anything else except Krishna. So therefore one has to go beyond this shmashana virakti, this temporary disgust with the material world. And one actually has to dedicate oneself to Krishna and Krishna only. Sri Bibla Thakur, you know, I think most of you know the story. How he was a debauchee. He was very attached to that prostitute, Chintamani. And he couldn't give up this attachment even in the most frightful situation. This clearly shows how this shmashana virakti is not enough to get free of material attachment. You remember, I think you remember the story, how he desired to meet with Chintamani one night. Even though it was storming outside, there was a torrential rain coming down. Still, he had to go. So he was risking his very life. Running through the forest at night, it was completely black. There was, except for flashes of lightning, and the rain was pouring down. The wind was blowing. Trees were cracking and falling in the forest. But still, he kept running. And then he came to a river, a swollen river, rushing with floodwaters. He jumped in. Chintamani. Splash. And the water swept him away. He was drowning. He grabbed onto something. He thought it was a tree trunk. And he was able to get to the other side. And then as he was letting go, he saw what it was. It was a dead body. He'd been embracing a dead body. But still he thought, Chintamani. Mm-hmm. And then when he reached her estate, because she was very wealthy, being a very expensive prostitute, so she had a big house and a big wall around. And he was banging on the gate, but because of the storm, she could not hear, so he climbed over the wall. And he was climbing, holding on to what he thought was a long vine. And then as he came over the top of the wall, he saw that this vine was actually a big snake. So frightening, but still he could only think, Chintamani. Finally, she let him in. She heard him banging on her door. So he came in. He was covered with mud. He was soaking wet. His clothes were torn. And he said, he was gasping for breath, Chintamani, I have come to be with you tonight. So, in his previous life, Biblamangala Thakur had been a devotee. And he had actually reached a very high state of Krishna consciousness, but had not yet become perfect. So his spiritual master, Somagiri, from that previous life, spoke, because Somagiri, even though he was not in the world anymore, he was transcendently situated, he was still very concerned for the deliverance of his disciple. So he spoke through the mouth of the prostitute to his disciple. And so the Chintamani said, "You are such a fool. You have such great determination, great dedication. You're prepared to go over all obstacles, and yet for what? Just to enjoy this material body. If you directed your dedication, your determination to Krishna, you would become Siddha, perfect devotee in this lifetime. So this is very nice explanation. Just like people, the materialistic people, their relatives die off one by one. They put them in the ground. They cry, but they go back to material life. Sometimes they get so sick and they have painful operations. They have to live under drugs. But after they recover a little bit, they go back to material life. Sometimes they're almost dying. They're having perhaps a terrible automobile crash. They're thrown through the window into a tree. They break their bones. They come so close to dying. But as soon as they recover, they go back to material life. Now, if we would just substitute devotional service for the material life and do the same, well, then we would be pure devotees. Oh, but in this regard, we are so weak. Someone was telling me yesterday, I won't reveal her name because she will be very embarrassed. She said that one dear friend of hers died, left their body last December sometime. And then because of that, she gave up chanting the Maha Mantra for some time. Well, why didn't you give up eating? It was such a terrible experience. And why not stop eating or stop breathing? Oh, but that we must do. But chanting Hare Krishna, that we can stop. So you see, this is the problem. This is the whole problem. Therefore, we don't go beyond this material conception and become situated in the transcendental understanding. Mhm. And that is again because of lack of submission and lack of tapasya, austerity. Now Bivla Thakur, when he heard his spiritual master, when he heard these transcendental instructions coming through the mouth of the prostitute Chintamani, it is said that he began to cry. Now, an ordinary materialistic man, he might also cry if a beautiful woman said, "You're a fool. Don't bother me. Go away." And he might also cry, but for a different reason than Bivla Thakur was crying. He cried because, by the mercy of his spiritual master, he got a glimpse of the absolute truth beyond this illusory material world. Yes, he thought, that is the reality. That I should love and serve, dedicate myself to Krishna only. What a silly fool I've been my whole life, pursuing Maya. Being the submissive slave of Maya and performing so many austerities and penances for Maya. So he was crying in ecstasy. And so he immediately left that place and went to Vrindavan. But then, those who know the story will remember that on the way, he again became attracted by the form of a beautiful woman, this time the young wife of a Brahmana. She was fetching water at the river, and he saw her and became so captivated that he followed her home. And her husband, who was a very pious Brahmana, saw Bivla Thakur. He was a sadhu, dressed as a mendicant, and welcomed him into his home. "Please, bless us by coming into my home and accepting service." So Bivla Thakur entered the home, and the Brahmana asked, "Please, how may I serve you? Ask me for anything." And Bivla Thakur said, "I want to be alone with your wife." And the Brahmana, he was so surrendered to the sadhus. He said, yes, that is your desire, then it shall be fulfilled. He called his wife and said, I will leave you here with this sadhu. You serve him any way he likes. Then he asked her to let her hair loose so he could see her hair. And after doing that, then he asked her to give him the pins that were holding her hair, and he put out his eyes. And thus he became blind to the material world. But by his devotion, he actually became nirapeksha. He could see Krishna. So actually, this is what it means to become Krishna conscious. One becomes blind to the material world. He sees only Krishna. He hears only Krishna. He obeys and serves only Krishna. Now that doesn't, I should say something. To become nirapeksha does not require us to do what Bimalamangala Thakur did. So. It's not that we have to punch out our material eyes. But we still have to become blind to the material conception. That means we have to become parikshit. Anyone knows the meaning of the name? The word parikshit? This Maharaj Parikshit, you know. So this term parikshit has a meaning. Yes. He who's always looking for Krishna. So, because when he was within the womb, this Ashvatam tried to destroy his embryo body with a heat weapon. But Lord Krishna in his four-armed form saved him. And the Parikshit within the womb could see for an instant the form of the Lord and never forgot. And after he was born, his whole life, he was always looking to see that form again. So he was not satisfied by any form, any visible form in this material world. It would not satisfy his eyes. So in other words, one must become eager, consumed by desire to see Krishna. And one must become a submissive servant of Krishna, and one must be prepared to undergo the highest austerities for Krishna. Thus, one's desire, this eagerness to see Krishna, will be rewarded. The Lord explains in the Bhagavad Gita, Raga Dvesha Vimuktai Stu Vishayan Indrayas Charan Atma Vashayer Vidhya Atma Prasadam Marigachati. That when one conquers the senses and the mind by strictly following the regulative principles, and in this way overcomes Raga Dvesha, the duality of the material conception, then he gets prasadam, Krishna's mercy. This Raga Dvesha means Raga. Sometimes I'm interested in sense gratification. Dvesha. Sometimes I'm disgusted. Like a fly to the stool. So this is the material conception, Raga Dvesha. So Krishna says, Raga Dvesha Vimuktais. One can become liberated. One can go beyond this. But one must follow the regulative principles of freedom, as they're called in Bhagavad Gita. And then prasadam adhigacchati. One will attain, one will receive the special mercy of Krishna, and thus attain the darshan of the Lord. And the darshan, the vision of the eternal spiritual world, our eternal home. So this goes along, or this is perhaps a further explanation of what we were speaking of last night, transcendental capitalism. Everything begins with an eagerness, an attraction to Krishna. And that we receive initially from the pure devotee, from the spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada started this whole movement simply on that basis. Srila Prabhupada did not start ISKCON by preaching rules and regulations. But he got the people who were coming to him to chant Hare Krishna, to take Krishna Prasadam. In this way, they got a taste for Krishna consciousness. They became a little attracted to Prabhupada and to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada preached to them very strongly that if you want to maintain this nice taste, transcendental taste, and expand it and perfect it, then you must follow the regulative principles. Then we must do as Lord Brahma has done, become submissive disciple, surrendered disciple, and engage in penances and austerities. Because by doing this, it's very sensible, very logical. By doing this, the attraction to material sense gratification is steadily reduced, and simultaneously the attraction to Krishna is steadily increased. Until one finally comes to this stage. Manishitano bhavoyam mama loka valokanam. This is the highest perfection when one is able to directly perceive the transcendental abode of the Lord. So that is the goal of this process of Krishna consciousness. That is the goal of everything we are doing. So it is up to us to carefully advance step by step on the path to that final goal. So we should not be careless. We should not take everything easy. Because then, by that attitude, not taking it seriously, we will revert to the material conception. This is again, it will just be Shmarshana Vairagya. Coming to Krishna consciousness out of some distress, taking to the process for a little while, enjoying it a little bit, but because we didn't accept it seriously, we didn't take it to heart, we were not determined, then eventually we lose interest and go back to what we think is the real thing, material life. But that is not the real thing. It is illusion. It is Maya. So our determination must become to become nirapeksha. that these eyes lose their ability to see anything material. And that these eyes only see Krishna. No more television? Srila Prabhupada says there is a transcendental television. Which appears within the purified heart. So this must be the determination, to go all the way to this goal. Are there any questions? Yes. Bhakti Nelly. Queen Kunti has prayed like that. She's prayed tatra tatra again and again. Let there be vipada, means calamities. Because by these calamities, the Pandavas, Mother Kunti and Draupadi and the 5 Pandavas, were always able to see Krishna. Being Krishna's surrendered devotees, the Lord would come to them and save them. So actually it's not that she was really praying for calamities, but she was praying that may we always see Krishna. And if it means that we should be in distress to see Krishna, then let us be in distress. Because by this distress, we will be saved from all distress. Now you ask, at what point does this become useless? Well, if one is Krishna conscious, then one is Krishna conscious. There's no opposite effect. This opposite effect is the symptom of material consciousness. This is again the duality, raga dvesha. That I want to enjoy, but it has the opposite effect. I suffer. And then when I suffer, I become disgusted and morose. But that leads again to enjoyment, to material sense gratification. That is useless. That's material life, enjoying the suffering. That's all people are doing in the material world, is just enjoying their suffering. And it becomes so clear in old age. When old people meet together, what do they talk about? Oh, I have a pain here in my arm. Oh, that's nothing. I have a pain here in my knee. I have to take 5 red pills every day, but I must take 10 green pills every day. So in this way they enjoy each other's friendship. Enjoying the suffering. But it's not just in old age, it's all stages of life. That's all that we're doing. So this is what is useless. And that's what we should give up. Yes? That's an easy answer, because if you're proud, then you're not engaged in the service of Krishna. Then you're engaged in the service of your false ego. So, to avoid pride, become submissive, one should serve Krishna. And give up the service of the false ego. And this is what the Bhagavad Gita is all about. In fact, in the 18th chapter, this is what Krishna presents to Arjuna. This is the choice. Serve me, surrender to me, or surrender to ahamkara, your false ego. Anything else? This is a good question. Therefore, we have to hear repeatedly. So, we attend this Bhagavatam class every day. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevya bhagavate uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Because by regular hearing of this Srimad Bhagavatam and hearing, we can add hearing the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, hearing the evening class Bhagavad Gita, hearing, completely immersing the sense of hearing in transcendental subject matter. So by this, then all the dirty things of the heart are destroyed, and thus Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki, one becomes established in factual devotional service to the Supreme Lord. The word naistiki means to be fixed, firmly established. So as you have pointed out, in the beginning, the neophyte stage, when everything is very theoretical, then we're not so firmly established in devotional service. So, the solution is repetitive hearing, Krishna Katha. So, we must become eager to hear about Krishna. As I was saying, we must become eager to see Krishna. But Krishna is Shruta Ikshita. He is seen through the ears. This is how one cultivates the qualification to see Krishna, through the ears. So, Srila Prabhupada has given us all of his books, a whole transcendental encyclopedia. So that we can develop this eagerness unlimitedly. Because Srila Prabhupada's books are fathomless. There's no bottom to them. When we say that they're fathomless, it's not simply that because there's so many volumes, but you take any one volume, this Srimad Bhagavatam second canto, you could read this for the rest of your life and not comprehend its entirety. So here is the answer. One must develop an eagerness to hear, to read Srila Prabhupada's books. Then one will become fixed in pure devotion to the Lord. One has to be greedy for this, thirsty. Just like when one is doing some hard work, or let us say distributing books in the hot sun, one becomes thirsty. So there's no water nearby. So one goes on distributing, but he's thinking, when will I get water? And he's looking, in between selling the books, he's looking, is there a place for water? And then he sees someone, all right, I will sell them a book. And after selling the book, counting the Lakshmi, he's looking, where is there water? So in the same way, we should perform our devotional service, thinking, where can I hear about Krishna? When will I be able to sit down and read? Of course, we must do our service, but that anxiety, that thirst should always be in the back of our mind. Yes? Well, yes, when you have Maya in your mind, then you're, of course, shy to reveal it. Maybe the devotees don't want to know. They don't want to hear about what's in your mind. Lord Chaitanya was very anxious to reveal his mind. But what he had to reveal was so confidential. He could only reveal it to very, very, very few devotees. Like Swarup Damodar Goswami, Ramananda Roy. So you see, the question of revealing the mind, it depends on what you want to reveal. And also to who. Who is actually capable of hearing what you have to reveal. So it is all right to discriminate. It's not that you should feel that there's something wrong with you, but because you can't walk up to the first devotee you see in the morning and tell them everything that you have in your mind. It's not that there's, therefore there must be something wrong with you. Because one should use discrimination. But we should reveal our minds before the spiritual master. If we can't reveal our mind to the spiritual master, then who? Who do we reveal our mind to? So we will stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.